In this video, we work through a typical IBAA higher level optimization problem in which we'll be faced with an implicit constraint. And of course, that problem is the one we see on the screen here. So let's quickly read through this. We're told a rectangle has vertices with coordinates 0, 0, x0, xy, and 0, y, where both x and y are greater than 0. We're then told that the point with coordinates x, y lies on the curve whose equation is stated here. That's x squared plus xy plus y squared equals to 12. And finally, we're told find the maximum possible area of the rectangle. Okay, well, to get us started, let me move this question to the side a little bit, and I'll shrink it while I do it. That should do. And as I often do, I'll quickly write SOL for solution. Okay, now before doing anything, when given a problem like this one, I like to get a clear idea of what we're actually dealing with. So again, we're dealing with a rectangle whose vertices are these points. But one point I want to say matters more than the others, and that's this point here with coordinates x, y. And the reason why that's such an important point is because that point lies on the curve whose equation is given here. And so since we're dealing with x and y values that are both greater than 0, what we're really faced with here is the first quadrant of the xy grid. So if I quickly draw that, that would be x and that would be y. And let's say that curve looks something like this. So that's x squared plus xy plus y squared equals to 12. Then if I place a generic point with coordinates x, y here, I could say it's this point here. The rectangle we'd be faced with is the one I'm drawing right now. There we go. So if this point has coordinates x and y, the x coordinate here would be x, and the y coordinate here, well, that would be y. And of course we have the origin right there. Okay, so we were in no way asked to make this sketch, but I just find it useful to get a clear visual of what it is I'm trying to find. So again, we need to find the maximum possible area of this shaded rectangle. Okay, well, just as for the optimization problems that we saw in the standard level part of the course, to solve this one, we'll again follow 4 steps. And as far as the first 2 steps are concerned, you won't really see any difference with what we've seen so far with the standard level course. The difference that you'll come across, if there is any, will usually appear in step 3, which of course we'll be showcasing with this example. For now though, as I said, I'll be writing the 4 steps. So, step 1, remember we need to identify the 2 key quantities, those being the target quantity, that is the thing we're trying to optimize, as well as the constraint. And the constraint in this case is what's going to stop us from making the area of this rectangle infinitely large. So here I'll quickly make a bullet point list and I'll say the target, and I could say target quantity. And in this problem, as we know, we're trying to maximize the area of the rectangle, so the target quantity is just the area. The constraint, on the other hand, well, that's what's stopping us from making the area of this rectangle infinitely large, and hopefully it's clear that the only thing stopping us from doing that is the fact that this point here has to lie on this curve. So rather than writing a long sentence here, I'll just say the constraint 2 dots is the fact that it has to lie on the curve, so I could just state the curve's equation. So x squared plus xy plus y squared equals to 12. Done. As such, that's the first step taken care of. So I move on to step 2, and I'll write that up here. And step 2, remember, involves writing both the target quantity as well as the constraint in terms of the problem's variables. And for this particular problem, that's actually quite easy. The target quantity is the area of this rectangle that we're trying to maximize. And the area of this rectangle, well, that's just going to equal to its base times its height. So in this case, that will just be equal to x times y. And so I'll quickly write that here. So the target quantity A is just equal to x times y. And I'll quickly box that and say target next to it, like so. As far as the constraint is concerned, well, we know that this point has to lie on the curve whose equation was given to us in the question. And so, put simply, the constraint is just the curve's equation, which we already wrote down here in step 1, but for the sake of properly completing step 2, I'll go ahead and write that again. We have x squared plus xy plus y squared equals to 12. And so the fact that the coordinates of this point on our rectangle have to hold with this equation, that's the constraint. And I'll quickly label that underneath here, like so, constraint. Okay, as I said at the beginning of this video, the first 2 steps we've seen so far are pretty much identical to the first two steps we've always been seeing with optimization problems. Those being identifying the target quantity and the constraint, and then writing each of those two things in terms of the problem's variables. But now in step 3, here's where things can be a bit different. Remember, we had said that in step 3, the idea is to rearrange the constraint we have in order to make either x or y the subject, to then eliminate that variable in the expression we have for the target quantity. But the issue we'll be faced with here stems from the fact that the constraint we have here is defined implicitly. And so when faced with constraints like this one, we'll speak of implicit constraints. And the issue with such constraints is that for our step 3, we won't be able to rearrange this constraint to make y or x the subject. And consequently, we won't be able to eliminate one of the two variables in the target quantity. So in step 3 here, we'll follow a slightly different approach. Rather than working with the target and the constraint directly, we're going to be working with their derivatives. And here we can see that the variables are x and y, so we'll differentiate both the target and the constraint with respect to x. Or we could also differentiate with respect to y, but force of habit often leads us to differentiating with respect to x. And once that's done, both of the derivatives we'll obtain will contain a dy dx term. Or if we choose to differentiate with respect to y, both of the derivatives we'll have will contain a dx dy term. And the idea here is we'll be using the constraints derivative to make dy dx the subject, to then eliminate the dy dx we'll obtain in the target's derivative. Now, I'm well aware that may sound overly confusing. Don't worry though, I'm quite confident it will make sense as we work through step 3. So let's go ahead. I'll start with the target quantity and I'll just write target. And so differentiating this expression with respect to x, and keeping in mind that y is a function of x, so we use implicit differentiation, we can state that dA dx is equal to, well, let's see, we'll use the product rule, so it will be equal to the derivative of x times y, so that will just be 1 times y, so that's y, plus x times the derivative of y, which will just be dy dx. Okay, now that we've differentiated the target with respect to x, we do the same for the constraint. And so I'll quickly write constraint here. And so, differentiating the left-hand side here with respect to x, and of course using the product rule for xy as well as the chain rule for this y squared here, we'll get 2x plus y plus x dy dx, that's the derivative of xy, plus 2y dy dx, and that will equal to the derivative of the right-hand side, which will just be 0. Okay, now that that's done, we want to rearrange the constraint in order to make dy dx the subject. The goal being to eliminate the dy dx we have inside the expression for dA dx we found before. So let's see, leaving the two terms with dy dx on the left-hand side, and making sure that all other terms appear on the right-hand side, the constraint can be written as x times dy dx plus 2y dy dx, which equals to, well, let's see, we have 2x plus y here on the left-hand side, so that becomes negative 2x minus y on the right-hand side. Next, I'll place dy dx as a factor on the left-hand side, so we have dy dx times x plus 2y, which equals to, well, we still have negative 2x minus y, but I'll write that as negative in parentheses 2x plus y. You don't have to do that. I just find it more convenient to write it this way to not make a mistake in the next step I'm about to make. And that next step involves dividing both sides of this equation by x plus 2y. And so in doing so, we find that dy dx is equal to negative 2x plus y over x plus 2y. And in fact, in an exam, I would go ahead and box that result. There we go, that's a very important step in the working there. Alright, now that we have our expression for dy dx, we go back to the dA dx expression that we had up here that we got from the target, and we replace the dy dx we have here by the expression I'm hovering over right now. So let's see, that would become dA dx is equal to y plus x times dy dx, so that will become y plus x times negative 2x plus y over x plus 2y, which would just be minus x times 2x plus y over x plus 2y. And as such, that's step 3 done. Okay, with step 3 out of the way, we move on to step 4, and in step 4 the goal is to optimize. So from one problem to the next, that means either to maximize or to minimize, and in this case, of course, we're trying to maximize the area of this rectangle, so we need to maximize. Okay, well, unlike in the standard level optimization problems, in this higher level problem, by the end of step 3, we have the expression for dA dx. And so to look for the maximum area, we need to solve dA dx equals to 0, which becomes y minus x times 2x plus y over x plus 2y equals to 0. And looking at this equation, hopefully it's clear that there are two unknowns here. Consequently, we can't really solve this directly. Instead, our goal here is to rearrange this to make either x or y the subject. And it doesn't matter which of the two you do, but here I'll go ahead and rearrange this so that we have y written in terms of x. The bigger picture being, once that's done, we'll be able to go back to the constraint that we boxed in step 2 here, to figure out what the value of x must be for dA dx to be equal to 0. So back to this equation, which we now seek to rearrange. So I'll say that this is y equals to x times 2x plus y over x plus 2y. Then multiplying both sides by x plus 2y, this becomes y times x plus 2y equals to x times 2x plus y. And I can see that I'm running out of space a bit there, so let me quickly draw a vertical line of separation, like so. And now on the next line, I'll distribute both the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So let's see, on the left-hand side, we'll have yx, or xy, plus 2y squared, which will equal to, well, we have x times 2x plus x times y, so that becomes 2x squared plus xy. And I'm sure you can appreciate that we have xy on both sides, so they cancel each other out. And so we end up with 2y squared equals to 2x squared. In other words, y squared equals to x squared. And without any restrictions, this would lead to y equals to plus or minus x. But remember, in this question we were told that both x and y are greater than 0, which tells us that y is equal to x. And I would definitely box that bit of working in an exam, like so. And this is a very important result because thanks to this, we can go back to the expression we have for the constraint here and replace every single y we have by x to then solve this equation for x, which will then allow us to find what the area is. Indeed, replacing both of these y's by x, this becomes x squared plus x squared plus x squared. In other words, we get 3x squared, which equals to 12. In other words, x squared equals to 4. And again, keeping in mind that x has to be greater than 0, this x squared, which equals to 4, tells us that x must equal to 2. And I'd go ahead and box that result. And so since x equals to 2 and since y equals to x, the area that leads to, and I'll quickly write that on the side like this, I'll join those two results. And I'll say that the area is therefore equal to x times y, so that's 2 times 2. In other words, the maximum area is equal to 4. And I could state 4u dot a for units of area. And that's the answer. Now, if ever we had to justify the fact that this is a maximum area, then one way, of course, would be to differentiate the expression we have here for dA dx and look into the sign of the second derivative at the points with coordinates 2, 2, but that would definitely take a bit of time using implicit differentiation here again. So instead, another way is to highlight the fact that in the first quadrant here, where both x and y are greater than 0, dA dx equals to 0 has one unique solution, which was the one we found here, that was when x equals to y. Consequently, since as one single stationary point, all it takes for us to show that this is indeed a maximum is to show that by considering any point to the left of that point, the area will be less than 4, and the same can be said for any area to the right of that point on the curve. And the most obvious, and I want to say easiest points to work with, would be the ones we'd obtain if we let the x-coordinate of this point here tend towards 0, which would bring this point all the way here, infinitely close to the y-axis, as well as the point we'd obtain by letting the y-coordinate of this point tend towards 0, which would bring this point all the way down here, infinitely close to the x-axis. And in both of those cases, since the area of the rectangle is equal to x times y, the area would tend towards 0, which of course is less than 4. So the area we have here must be a maximum area. And so here we could simply state a quick note. I'll write it like this, note, 2 dots. A tends towards 0 as x tends towards 0 plus, as well as, or I could just write or, when y tends towards 0 plus. And there we go. This area is the maximum area this rectangle can take. And there we have it. That's it for this tutorial on higher level optimization problems. Do remember the 4-step method we've just worked through, and keep in mind that in essence the first 2 steps are identical to what we had seen with standard level optimization problems, and the key difference we come across is in step 3, where we differentiated both the target and the constraint with respect to x, and once that was done, thanks to the derivative of the constraint, we were able to eliminate the dy dx we had inside the derivative of the target to obtain an expression for the derivative of the target solely in terms of x and y, which we would then able to equate to 0 in step 4. All that being said and done, that's it for this tutorial.